Or at least
It's there for the seal.
land leased. You want a pen now?
I think my phone for my.
Oh, your cell is right there. There we go. Okay, there we go.
You push the, light up a little bit.
This,
The guy, yeah.
right?
Yeah. Get somewhere. And it is, is everybody ready? All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 1:30. We'll do a roll call round table. Good Garrett, Mayor Todd Lance, Jason Ferguson, Chief of Police, Kevin Thompson, Assistant City Manager, and Ground Director.
Susie Holmes, Finance Director.
Councilmember Melanie Bagby.
City Manager David Keller.
Thank you.
We're all here.
Public comments. Any person wishing to speak to the council subcommittee on any item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Members of the public have the right to speak on any item on the agenda at the time the item comes up for consideration. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the subcommittee is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. 3 minutes are typically allotted to each speaker. Michael, do we have any attendees that would like to make any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. There are no members of the public raising their hand at this time, and in fact, there are no members of the public attending the meeting virtually.
Perfect. Just for information, if anyone in the attendees would like to make a public comment or comment on any item, just please hit the raise hand icon. All right, C, communications. Any written communications?
No written communication here.
Beautiful. All right, let's move right into new business. Number 1, David.
Oh, there were no minutes, that's right.
No minutes.
That's right, I didn't remember reading this, great. Hang on.
Thank you, Chair. So items 1 and 2, if it's okay, take those together. Including the packet is a proposed amendment to the franchise agreement. This is the solid waste recyclables and green waste agreement with Recology. The council previously approved an extension of the franchise agreement for a 15-year period. Along with that, a new rate structure. The original franchise agreement was with Redwood Empire Disposal, or RED. A number of things have changed since the original franchise agreement. Granted, council did approve amendment number 1, which extended the agreement for 15 years. Again, included in that were the recovery of costs related to service, SB 1383 costs, and some other costs related to regulatory changes. With that, Recology has come back and said, based on that amendment, it's an opportune time to do some cleanup to the franchise agreement, and I agree, and I think R3, our long-term rate consultant that we've utilized to help evaluate amendments agrees. They've prepared a scope of work to assist us and coordinate with Recology on bringing forward a proposed amendment that would clean up the existing franchise agreement and make other changes. Some of the things that we would probably want to look at in this amendment is how we do or how the community cleanup provision works. There's been a move towards going away from just a 1-day event to allowing for bulk pickup items by neighbors. But there's probably some outreach on that.
I have some comments specific to that when we're ready.
But that is something that we can discuss in further detail as we embark upon this proposed amendment. Really, the action just wanted to kind of bring forward tonight or today, excuse me, is the proposed amendment, making sure that the Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee is aware, and to enter into an agreement with R3 to assist with that effort. And included in the packet is the proposed scope of work. The real quick here. The totals 19,000. Part of that is, includes the annual rate adjustment. When council approved the amendment, the initial amendment, it set rates for 2023. This would also include a rate review for 2024, and that's just part of the annual process to adjust rates to reflect what's called the refuse rate index, or RRI, which is a bag of goods related to solid waste services. The primary component of that is the tipping fee at the landfill that the county charges for ecology. And every year those fees go up. So the mechanism that not just the city, but all cities kind of go through is this annual rate adjustment process to take into account this increase in tipping fees that the solid waste haulers are required to pay. So really just want to leave it there. This would be an item that would continue to be on the agenda. We could bring forward specific kind of deal points or discussion points that we want to recommend or be considered as part of this amendment. But otherwise, I do think it's a good idea to proceed and to engage with R3 to help us with the kind of the update amendment to the franchise agreement.
So question, so the edits that we're seeing, are those in partnership initially with R3, or were those staff?
The edits that you see are actually, the red line were amendments that were proposed by Recology.
Okay, so Recology's kicked it back to us with that.
Yes,
Okay.
part of this was triggered during the amendment number 1. We were in part asking council, do we agree to extend the franchise agreement? If so, what's the term? During that process, they called out there was a number of things that were inconsistent,
Right.
and so there is a lot of just what I would call good cleanup that's necessary. And they actually brought it forward literally when it was the day before with the council, and I said, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's a little too too late to bring forward
Not so fast.
what are otherwise are a long list of amendments to add to the original amendment without a discussion and review. And so
that's
they've been kind of waiting patiently.
Okay.
I'll give them credit
So
for
that's
that.
like 3 months then at least, right? I'm trying to remember when that happened.
Yeah,
That's-
it's I think it was in August.
Okay, so it's longer, so it's even longer.
Right.
So some of my concerns is like just having gone through the first red line, which was very, very helpful. Because then you kind of, it's like you could like, okay, that's standard language, okay, here are where the major changes are, and some of it's legislative and some of it's just procedural between company to company, which is fine. Somebody made a good effort to find all the reveillees. I think they found 1 or 2. They didn't get all the reveillees.
Okay.
So, but my main concern are all of those areas where, we're gonna put an insert in the bill and we're gonna, put something in the newspaper. It's so outdated. I can't even believe that. I mean, I can kind of believe they want to get away with whatever they can get away with minimum cost, but there's a major difference in how our customers, whether they're single family or multifamily, are dealing with the trash, their recycling, and their bulky pickup. The bulky pickup is probably the biggest component because that's the stuff that ends up on the side of the road or at the river.
Free.
Yeah, free. So what I would prefer to see is something of far more rope. And of course they mentioned it's like, we have an outreach person. They're going to work with the landlords. They're going to work with, forget it. What I would want them to see is I want them to develop a series of videos. One of them is like dedicated to bulky item. What does 2 square yards look like? Not everybody grows up using yards. Some country use the metric system. And so, and what does contaminated recycling look like? I want to see them develop a series of videos that we can use in our newsletters that we can put on the website and that we can retread, and they would be able to retread those from city to city wherever they have this requirement in the agreement. So I love that they come to Citrus Fair. I love that they come to Friday Night Live, but they have got to modernize and get with, modern standards of communicating with the public. And the key part of that is them to develop 2 to 3 videos in English and Spanish that they put on their YouTube channel. We have the link to, all the cities can reuse them, and then we revisit them, in a time period that seems appropriate, like 5 to 7 years or something like that. But how many times have we heard in council meetings, well, I don't know how to dispose of that, and it's like, you get a recycling, everybody gets a recycling circular on a regular basis. They end up in, So, but you need the information about bulky item when you have the bulky item that you need to get rid of, not when you saw it 5 months ago in an insert somewhere. So they need to modernize their approach. And if they need an example of what I'm talking about, Sonoma Clean Power just did that telenovela series on how to make your home more energy efficient. And it's like, there are resources in the county for them to do that. But I'm not really, this bulky item thing is a big problem for us here because we're so isolated and people don't use the dump. And we need to make sure that we're getting that stuff off of the streets and if we're keeping it out of the river. And that's the main way that we can help do that. We just need to educate people because we have, former council members who don't know that they have to call for bulky pickup now. And it's been in the ether, it's been in the, the information has been out there. But it needs to kind of be in our newsletter on a regular basis, featured on the website, featured in blogs. And if they do it once, they can reuse it for all of their jurisdictions. So laying down the.
Some people don't even know you're entitled to a bulk.
Yeah, they don't know. They don't know. People don't know that, and they don't know the number to call, and you don't need to know it until you have that sofa that you got to get rid of. We can add in information about the TV recycling, which is completely different. That's a completely different program, but it's just like that stuff just has to be available and put in front of people on a regular basis.
So I think because the agreement, we have provision in the franchise agreement around consumer information, public education. And it talks about the newsletters and additional.
It's free similarly, whether it's trash, compost, or bulk. And in one place, I think we caught the Reveille thing, and another place it didn't get caught. But it's basically the same way. It's basically the same idea. So they need to modernize how they're doing their operations.
Shopping run.
Yeah.
So, what I hear, Councilmember, maybe you'd like to see is in the public education component, some language providing for additional outreach services, particularly targeting kind of more like web video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the YouTube.
Mhm.
Or Instagram, but it's just like a basic video that shows it's like, a family, sorting their trash and recycling, and how do you, what does contamination mean? What's allowed, what isn't? And then when you go to you can have a separate video on bulky items that says, and you can line up, 3 kids. 3 kids is basically 2 cubic yards. Everybody can visualize that. Use visualization on either, a YouTube video or even an Instagram that shows exactly what they mean and what the phone number is to call and what the expectations are. They know how to do this. They do it all the time. And we just have to ask for it.
Yeah, it's one of those functions too that is a key role, of zero waste.
Yeah.
So there's overlap.
And there's overlap there, and there may be overlap for how it gets funded too. That could be a grant program or something like that. But I want to see it for each of the major categories. And I want to see it in English and Spanish, and it's available to read on websites. And then we can share it if we need to. We can share the cost across multiple jurisdictions. But R3 is also really good at figuring out grant funding for things like this, and it's just time to modernize how we do that outreach. Do we even mention social media? We don't even. It's like we're going to do a bill insert, handouts, you know, and there's just not, I'm like, oh, come on.
Right, I mean, some of the things that I hear are things that I think will be the responsibility of the city that we just
Yeah.
may not be in the franchise agreement, but maybe things that we just need to make sure we
Right.
are performing as
And
part of our.
we can help us figure out what that is, and maybe we need partners with Airways, but I'd really like to see Recology pick this up and take, you know, take some of the responsibility for this. I mean, R3 is in the position where it's like they can look at how we could get something like that.
Sure. But I think that was really it, is to get into this larger cleanup, but that there are the things like the outreach component. And there are certainly other elements that we can bring to the table if there's a desire to do so.
That was my main concerns, was like just that outreach issue is big for us. It's a big change. So now's the time. It's a big change in how it's going to be administered and who's responsible for what. So now is a really good time to figure that out.
One area that I think is for staff that we will probably want to drill down a little bit on is the street sweeping component. Obviously, we have requirements under our NPDS permit to ensure that we're reducing trash and debris going in the storm drain system. But we're also seeing a lot more customers, residents, I should say, asking for street sweeping services, particularly during fall, and just seeing where there are opportunities to. I mean, I think I think they do a pretty good job of street sweeping, but
There is a marked improvement when they took over their franchise. It just was huge.
yeah. Well, I think their sweepers a lot better than what was previously.
And they actually, they were coming for a while, they were coming, and this is years ago, I should be able to bring it up, but they were coming on trash morning when all our cans were out in the street, and that did get fixed. It's like, oh, come on. So that was under the old franchise, and so since then, they're timely, they do a good job, and I say, I think my neighborhood's pretty happy, but that's not, I may not be true in the rest of.
Yeah.
Jefferson Springs has issues with that right now because I think it's Saturday morning.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how tight that is already, even weekdays, how many cars are on those streets.
Yeah.
So Jefferson Springs, the schedule.
So they should schedule to where it's during people's work hours and the least amount of.
They do
vehicles.
come screaming down the street at about 6:30 in the morning. On my
It
street.
would be nice to
Yeah.
have it to where they're doing when our people are helping, type of thing, as much as they can.
Yeah, that's tough.
It is, it is tough. I get it.
I think no one's gonna be 100% happy, but
They have it pretty close.
Yeah.
It's only that neighborhood that I've heard complaints from.
It's the timing.
Yes, it was like on a Saturday or something.
Okay.
They're doing it.
And I know there's been instances where they may have missed something happened and then they try to make it up.
yeah.
So that's.
And that could be it as well.
Yeah.
The only other complaints I've had were regarding fines.
Mhm.
And things like that, so it might be something to look into, how are they warning customers for putting the wrong things in the wrong hands and for the education.
That's part of the just enhanced communication. You gotta communicate people where they are, and unfortunately, they're on Instagram. You know, and so I think that would help us with the fine issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If people, we raise their bills and then they turn around and they have a guy open up the can looking inside and writing a tag for a fine on there, and they're like, wait a second, no.
They do inventory, and that's part of the education as well, is they purposely come out and do an inventory and find out where the violators are, and they try to nip it where it happens so that it doesn't end up being a problem at the sorting facility.
Right.
Or, making or breaking down their equipment sorting facility. So the more residents understand, yeah, there's someone who's gonna be looking at your recycling and making sure you didn't, break the rules, then I think people are gonna be less inclined to throw that
And I think
styrofoam box in recycling.
it's great as long as they give the warning or education
Yeah.
first versus, slap them with a fine on their bill. And don't have to prove what it was. They just fine them.
Right, yeah,
That's what I've been getting kids about.
get out in front of it.
That's right.
Oh, sorry, Chief.
But you know what? That's pretty minimal for raising the rates, new contract, all this going on. They do a good job.
Yeah, and that we weren't paying. Yeah, we weren't paying what we should have been before, so it's always a surprise when you don't keep up with the rates and you don't keep up with the level of service. And then you got SB 1338 on top of it. So it was kind of and then a pandemic, so it was kind of a perfect configuration. The time to catch up.
Well, thank you for the comments on the actual proposed amendment. I'll certainly provide that feedback. I got first order of business will be to ink an agreement with R3. I haven't done that yet, but I want to make sure that there was support.
Absolutely.
It's the cost will be covered by Recology for the work that R3 does. So it's not, we're not out of pocket the costs of the work, but we're certainly out of pocket on the staff time involved in this.
Yeah.
I'll be the primary staff person leading this.
For a contract too, I just want to make sure that, we threw out some specific platform names, but these contracts need to be platform agnostic, so we need to talk about, internet video, and it's just awkward video, that's exactly what it is. Internet video, 2 to 3 minutes piece on various educational areas that can be shared across multiple platforms, because you never want to, we don't want to get in a situation where we're mentioning a specific platform by name and then next week no one suddenly uses Instagram. So that's what, does that clarify my comments? Okay.
Anyone else? Mike, as one attendee,
Who's the attendee?
maybe we just click over to that.
The attendee is a staff member.
Okay.
Oh, it's just our staff.
Shannon.
Oh, hello, Shannon. All right, there we go.
All right, well then, no public, we'll move on to the next one. Here is the agreement with ISOM.
Okay, so Chair, if it's okay, if it take 3 and 4 together.
Absolutely.
So at the previous council meeting, council received a presentation by Greg Isom Advisors for in regard to it was really a financial presentation and kind of overview of our voter demographics in regards to a potential bond measure or tax measure to fund a new police station. The proposed scope of work ISOM Advisors provides for kind of as a key step conducting a community survey of voter preferences. The council did voice their support for moving forward with the voter survey. One of the key aspects of that obviously is to prepare an agreement with ISOM Advisors to perform that work. I think the cost is outlined in the scope of work was $12,500. That was the funds for that were not in the budget, so we'll need to bring forward a budget adjustment for that work effort, and those are kind of out of pocket costs for ISOM Advisors to perform the voter preference survey. As part of that, Mr. Isom has indicated that he would desire to and recommends including a list of other projects to kind of garner the voters' interest in supporting as part of a funding measure to support the police department. In his experience, I think if I can paraphrase, it's critical to as he called it, sweeteners. Something that's gonna.
That was gonna be the first thing I was going to suggest, is we stop calling it a bond for a police station, because it'll never pass. Just our own demographic won't let it. So I was gonna say, first thing we have to do is just stop calling it that and find or community civic center or something, something along those lines. Right?
I think that's kind of where the
Community supported improvements.
And we find one stuff. Well, and this is where
Asterisk.
this is where your list of
Yes,
events where you're finding the big projects that you name it. Like we did a whole remodel 3 schools, and it was all based around a solar panel. That was 500,000 out of 10 million. But that's what we sold it. So that's what we think. It could be something as simple as new trails and open spaces.
yeah.
And we name it that, and we're pushing for money for that and other city projects.
Right.
You might get the bulk, but that gets the name.
So I developed a list, just for the subcommittee's consideration.
Thank you.
And I didn't drill down on some of these, for instance, local road projects. We could probably name 5 or 10 projects that we'd like to do in terms of road improvements. But so there's some flexibility there if we want to provide some names of projects, but just running down the list. I think if we are to build a new police station, one of the aspects that would be critical is looking at the existing station. And from what I've garnered from talking to council and community is
Earthquake safe civic center.
is interest in kind of expanding or redeveloping the plaza, and I think there's a lot of community interest around that. You know, it could be a creek restoration project, it could be expanding the public space.
And I think that's where that staying away from specifying too
Mhm.
much,
Mhm.
like creek improve, downtown creek improvement, and I'm apprehensive about skate park because skate park can be
Absolutely.
under park improvements.
Mhm.
You know, and so that's kind of my feedback. So imagine, did you take a look down the capital improvement project list and was kind of, I think it looks like you did, but maybe it might have just been.
Well, a lot of the CIPs I have in my head, but
Yeah.
these were just things I thought that there might be some interest in. And I want to bring it to the subcommittee to get your input, feedback on how we might want to adjust or modify this list to kind of reflect where we might get get some interest by our voters.
I think Melanie's absolutely right. You don't name skate park unless you're going to put millions into a skate park.
Yeah.
You don't do specifics unless it's like, you're going to do exactly that.
Yeah.
So you're very vague with park improvements,
I-
road improvements, street improvements.
I didn't go to resiliency and infrastructure instead of green energy.
Okay, so resiliency.
You know, I sent you that article, and actually it's kind of synergistic. I had it in mind to talk about it, planning and sustainability, but I sent you that article about the Detroit parking lot policy where they do like permeable pavement, and they're like, they're like, it's more of it's a green space first and a parking lot second kind of idea. And it's just from, an architectural, from a municipal architectural. So that's kind of the kind of thing we might want to go for, is that, a lot of the parking lots, I don't know how you put this in bond language, but the idea is that a lot of our parking lots are just heat sinks. And they could be a lot more pleasant, and then they could also be more of, we have more festivals and things like that in the city park. As it made it, if it was more inviting, it would be yet another place where we could have, the longest table, or we could have some of these other events that, folks are wanting to do downtown. So if we look at it as, kind of converting city property to be more inviting, to be more climate resilient, to be more, less of a heat sink and more of a green space. That's the kind of thing that I think that would be appealing to voters. It's like, oh, you're gonna take that ugly parking lot behind Exchange Bank and actually make it parkable and usable.
Well, and
Yeah.
when this stuff goes on the ballot, you list projects in scope, and it's very, but you do it in a,
Very
I don't know if
vague.
you call it vague or ambiguous, like it could be that parking lot, but it could be this one, you don't know, like.
Yeah. It's
park
not anything in
improvements.
specific, city property, resiliency, that could be anything. That could be anything from solar panels to permeable pavement, that could be a lot of things, so.
When you talk like police station, city hall, that's a community center. That's how I look at that, as community
Civic center.
civic
It's a
center.
civic center, because it could be police and it could be city hall,
Yeah,
it could be just a community center, so.
So do we, just going down the list, do we agree with downtown plaza expansion redevelopment? Is that-
absolutely,
Okay. Local road projects?
absolutely.
Okay. So new police station, city hall, we think maybe
We say
something
road and transportation,
road and local road and,
Yeah, because again, could
Well, what if we
be,
do a bus stop or something like that, or something different?
it could be, we take for, like, just as an example of the kind of project that might fit under the umbrella is, I was talking with Kevin about the Ridge to Rivers idea, and if we went after that, God, what's the name of that? The Bloomberg grant, and they have a whole like street art where you actually paint on the street. And they use it, you can use it for direction, you can use it for traffic calming. So it may be part of a whole strategy to connect our parks, but that's a road project. The sidewalks and bike lanes, that's a road project, but it might be a beautification, or it might be a traffic calming. It can fall under a lot of categories, so.
Same when we do Hillsbury Avenue, but
And Hillsburg Avenue, where
and
all
all that
you need is-
area in Washington Street.
all
that
you need
all
is
go
paint.
under different grants if it's listed as
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah, traffic
Yeah.
calming,
You gotta be vague, right?
yeah.
You have to be big.
So.
Walkable communities, I think is the term we're looking for. Am I right, Kevin, or?
Yeah, it sounds good.
There you go.
So
Pretty much cool stuff.
local road, pedestrian and transportation.
Yeah.
projects? Okay. Excellent. And
One
then,
whole block of cities.
If you lock yourself into a project, you will lock
Yeah.
yourself into a
Yeah,
project,
you don't want to-
because that solar system that we did. It produces just enough to cover its own bills, but it was sold on that we had to do that exact project because you had no choice.
Yeah, we learned that with the
Even though it was wrong at that point,
measure out.
so.
so for new police station, new city hall, do we wanna say something like, civic center improvement?
Civic facility. Or city government, I don't know, you don't want to use the word
No.
government, but I think that that's the thing that he can help us with it a little
Yeah.
bit more too, but just say that we want an umbrella phrase for. Civic center buildings, yeah. Community safety,
Community safety center.
mhm,
Yes,
I like public safety.
I do too, but there's a lot of people. who don't.
Yeah.
Public safety,
I don't disagree with staying away from them.
that links too closely these days, it seems like.
Feeling safe.
You could say-
New civic center.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, and then but skate park will move, we'll eliminate it, but it would be more of a park improvement.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And we have resiliency and green energy projects on city property.
I would do, I wouldn't use green energy products, I'd use, resiliency and infrastructure improvements. Did we have something in here? I know about broadband as well. For city and community facilities. Or not?
So
Is it Terry, was that his name? Sorry.
Greg.
Greg. I'm getting to because I'm Terry Creed. Terry Creed.
It'd be Greg and John, the two brothers.
Okay,
But we just keep a bigger list and we can on it in
yeah.
and we get his advice too.
Well, that's just the thing is that broadband is infrastructure. So there you
Just say infrastructure, as could mean all.
It could mean, yeah.
Resiliency, okay, so there's any infrastructure projects.
Broadband.
Well, maybe say resiliency, infrastructure, broadband, because
Yeah.
if we're putting, if we do put in the building.
Yeah.
They're getting a lot of this
Yeah.
technology, so it's still there in the same. So,
I think you can justify.
yeah,
This guy,
Then we have, I had on the list is new trails and open, that's new parks, trails and open spaces.
You know what? I think we capitalize on our news.
Okay.
With
Yeah.
that's how
then,
we're
uh,
looking to
and then
finance this.
Kind of keep it separate as part of
Very-
improvements.
Yes.
Okay, anything else that we, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so we'll have about 7.
That's enough.
that's enough. That covers 90 things, really.
Okay,
No,
So-
it's fine.
A question that I've never asked. The expansion of the plaza, would that mean that both of these would be for sale?
Okay.
To help
Bring it
fund
up.
and bring up towards money?
There's still a plan.
Okay,
There's,
I figured there's something in the works from the past.
well, yeah, there's an old plan.
You're real quiet right now. Should we just leave that off the table for now and talk later?
well, I there's a lot of different ideas. I know there was a concept that was put together by the AIA about redeveloping all of this. I think it's something that we should really think closely about and look at some different alternatives.
Okay.
That with some, different kind of returns on investment. Because I think there's some strategies in demo everything versus maybe you demo one and keep the other and you rent one and, there's just some different alternatives and staging and timing and my thought is if we're successful in getting funding for a police station, we'll be able to accomplish that. It may take a little more time to get the civic center built or a city hall built.
Can Craig do the part of the work, which is the tax base, the square footage analysis of what the potential value per square feet of downtown is versus other districts? Because I mean, one of the reasons that it was being looked at to take out city hall and police department buildings, unrelated to the fact that they probably aren't going to be standing very much longer on their own anyway, is that it's not necessarily the best district for those entities to reside, that there is more property tax value in downtown potentially for other uses. And so, the idea of moving the police department to maybe a more central location in town that's outside of the downtown core, maybe moving civic offices to another location where when you could have, more property tax income for both the city and the school district, if the buildings that are there are, we're getting the maximum property tax value out of them. So I don't know if he does that kind of drill down and analysis of the potential property tax per square foot if we were to relocate buildings or do a particular, kind of development in the footprint that we have control over.
Yeah, I don't know offhand whether he has that.
Yeah.
My review of his professional background didn't necessarily include kind of that level of economic analysis.
That's probably something that
I think that's above or outside of economic impact.
and sometimes the lawn people do that, and sometimes they don't, it's just probably you need a bigger firm really to do that, but I think he's absolutely, who we should go with on this, but that's part of it too, and then the other, additional risk with looking at relocating and leaving vacant city-owned properties is that then you can lose control. It could be grabbed by, a housing developer. We wouldn't have as much control of what would be there. So that's part of now that chess game of where we locate civic buildings and where the zoning can be used to maximize our property tax revenues. But we have to be careful that we don't expose ourselves to, those properties being used exclusively for housing. I would be in favor of like a mixed use development, but we want to be able to make sure that our most valuable real estate is generating the most property tax per square foot for both city and for the school district. And we don't want to give that. That's part of the problem that we have right now is that we're not maximizing our property tax revenues with our, our land use use. So I would be interested in pursuing that. If we're going to seriously, if we get to the stage where we think we're going to run, we're going to put this measure on a ballot. I want to have that as the phase 2, which is we're really going to take a serious look at our real estate inventory and maximizing our property tax revenue per square feet in the areas that we control.
Are you thinking about not doing it on Times Square? Is that kind of the idea that you're thinking?
What do you mean?
Like to build a police station or community center, civic center, you think that that's not the best location?
I think it's not the best location because it should be used for commercial. It's the most valuable piece of real estate in it's that and downtown are the two most valuable. These are the most valuable pieces of real estate with the highest potential for property tax revenue. And if we blow it, we screw it up for both taxpayers and for the school district. So I want to make sure that that's like phase two. Once we think we're ready to move and that our outlook looks pretty good, that we're gonna, 'cause I don't think we're gonna run if we don't think we can win.
Greg won't do it if.
Yeah,
if
and
it's not
so
there.
if we get to that point, though, I want to be ready to pull the trigger on that economic development analysis to make sure that, whatever decisions we make about this location and the police department plaza, we are doing it with property tax revenues in mind.
Yeah.
Does that make
And we have
sense? Does that make sense?
oh, yeah, and we have a lot of legwork to do with our existing
This is-
vacant property in downtown.
Yeah.
So that will be key.
And it would probably be point two where we would need to, once that's done, we need to look at our zoning and make sure that our zoning is on point and in line with our, that's the pay scenario for tax base. Because we're probably a little off. And things have changed, kind of since the whole kind of idea of, yes, city hall and police department go away, we enhance the plaza. I think there's been some major changes. So that probably needs to be looked at through that lens. And we might as well, we just need to be ready to, if we're gonna go on this measure, that needs to be the next thing that we do.
Okay, but I see generally agreement that we move forward. I heard from council with the survey, obviously with the revised and updated list. So based on feedback today, I give the list to Greg and we can start moving forward on the work. And that'll help inform, next steps, and that could be part of that discussion. Once we have those results, where do we go from here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, next one. Auditor position.
All right. We just completed our fiscal year 21-22 audit. The existing firm has been with us for 3 years now. And we previously, prior to that, worked with Terry Krieg for 5 years, and under the government code, it's required that after so many years, you have to switch auditors, basically. I think staff and council really enjoyed working with Mr. Krieg. He is kind of a small shop, provides kind of the turnkey services that we like, and also it's just a real pleasure to work with. Given the constraints, since working with the firm that we work with, Susan, so if you want to talk a little bit about that, and why you want to kind of move forward with Mr. Krieg.
Yeah, so we have a 3-year contract with Proper and Associates, and we've completed that. That was up this class. We can do 1-year extensions if we choose to. However, because they're so busy at the time that we really need them, it took longer to do the audit this year than it ever had, in my experience here. Not that they weren't good, it's just that they were very busy, and it was difficult for staff to get the information that they needed to them. And Terry has much more experience with government, so he knows all. So our preference would be to go back to Terry now that we've done the 3 years, prove that Terry's not, in cahoots with us.
Right.
So, and when I reached out to Terry, he sent us a bid. The bid is like $500 less than what we have in the budget. And so the cost is very comparable, and just the experience of working with Terry is much more enjoyable. He's like an extension of staff almost, like he's willing to help and say, maybe don't do it this way, but try this approach. And yeah, he was just the joy to work with, and we would appreciate going back to him.
I think I said to Terry at his last meeting, I said, those 3 years will be over before you know it. And here they are. So I mean, I support going back to him.
Everyone supports, I'm in.
Yeah.
And Susie, remind me the dollar amount. It's 44,500. So depending on when we prepare the agreement, if we do it July 1, it'll be within my signature authority,
Okay.
and we can proceed
Awesome.
with a PSA, professional services agreement, and be off and running without having to necessarily bring it to council, because it'll be within authority and within the budget.
We'll just make sure it's.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next one is the master fee schedule. This is a schedule that we put forth every year. We ask all staff to go through their departments and look at the hours that are associated with each of the charges. Because what we have is cost recovery policy that we have implemented. The only changes in the master fee schedule this year are the wage increases. So it's 2 years because we did this before with some of it. We did this before last year's increase as well. And the only other change was the public hearing notices, because we were doing it in the rebel rate and it was $100, and now we're gonna Democrat. It's 300. You know? So when you look in there, when you see it, it'll show you the percentage changes, and the ones that are really high are likely because they have a public hearing notification component to it. And that's marking it up. Other than that, we didn't make any changes to any hours to.
One other component, just to mention, so, the master fee schedule is a public hearing item, so it'll be on the June 14th council agenda for formal review and consideration as part of a public hearing. Included as Finance Director Holmes provided is, the laundry list of fees that we have for again, cost recovery and services. But included on that schedule is the water rates. And the master fee schedule will reflect the increase in water rates that's in the adopted rate study for both water and wastewater. Susie, I don't know if you'll touch on those briefly.
Yeah.
what those rates are.
I think it was a 10% and a 12% increase this year, one for water, one for wastewater. It's totally based off of the resolution that was approved in 2021. So when you see it, I mean, that's our opportunity to speak about it if you choose to.
One of the things it's included, if just for reference, if you wanted to see it now, we do have included in the packet the water revenue tracking worksheet.
Oh, yeah. Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
I do want to make sure that everybody realizes that even though there's this increase, we did just take off the surcharge for
The draft.
yes.
Yeah.
And so, since everyone is still doing so good at conserving their water, that we are gonna expect to see a pretty large decline of 25%, because that's what the surcharge was. So if we take this away as well, then we might not have the money to do something.
Sure, if you like, we can pull up the tracking worksheet. Just if you want to take a look
Is
at
it
that.
March, or are we looking at the April and May?
This includes what's the April and May. Mike, would you be able to pull that up and do a screen share?
Yeah.
Oh, I got it.
I already heard.
Got it, yeah.
It's already there.
All right, so including your packet is, and we've been putting this in monthly. Really, the goal is to be very transparent with the revenue. One of the things you can see for this current fiscal year, we're in 22-23, about ready to wrap up fiscal year. Since the elimination of the surcharge, we've seen a decline in the year-over-year revenue to the tune of what is that? Almost $73,000. If you just do a comparison of where we are to date with last year's, we know once we get June's water use in, we'll be above last year. And we might it depends on where we land. We may be above the 2 fiscal years ago, like it says 2021. But we really were predicated when we did the rate study. The intent was to be up several $100,000 to start generating the fund balance revenue to fund CIP projects. So I just want to point that out. I think where we're going to land with June is probably somewhere like what we did last year, probably 265,000. So we'll be up on a year-over-year basis for 22-23, but not far over the 2021, which was kind of when we started to move into the drought and when we adopted the rate study. So we adopted the rate study with the understanding of its increased rates were going to generate additional revenue that was going to help build our fund balance. Kind of the positive side is that our residents have done such a great job of conserving, but it's affected our revenue. And it's a good thing we eliminated the surcharge. Obviously, we're seeing that impact on the revenues. But I think it suggests that the proposed rate increase is prudent to ensure that we're building revenues, because I think some of the conservation that happened over this last year is embedded,
Yeah,
meaning
it's permanent.
it's permanent,
It's
right?
all- it's interesting.
Folks are just, it became more ingrained as a practice. I think we're going to see water use go back up. With the season, and we've had a cooler than usual season. We've had obviously a lot of rain, so folks' lawns haven't quite dried out yet.
I haven't watered outside yet. I mean, really, and for anything that isn't vegetable,
Right.
So, and I won't again. I probably won't again. Because I didn't for years. I didn't need to for years. So I think that those habits are changed and people take their landscaping, people upgraded their. I think appliances have some to do with it and toilets have some to do with it, but it's the outside watering that is the.
As an aside, one of the things that we did not factor into the rate study that we brought to council just a few months back were the impact of inflation on materials. We saw the alum and the chlorine prices almost double.
Yeah.
And we always had to bring a budget adjustment for it, but those were really unexpected increases. I mean, there's some normal increases, but these were really big jumps. And those are costs that we just didn't factor in.
Nobody did.
So
Unfortunately,
unfortunately,
or scarcity, so people, cities got hit with it, individuals got hit with it, so.
so anyways, just
Yeah,
we'll be bringing the master fee schedule forward at your next meeting. It'll be a public hearing.
it would be, I'm sure it's easier to make that different, show that difference between the price of the system and the price per gallon, or the price per cubic feet. Because it's really the price of the system, but if we pass it on to everybody, then it gets very unequal.
I think we're still about 1 cent a gallon.
We're still the cheapest in the area. We're still the lowest in the area. Yeah. It's not the water, it's getting it to you.
Exactly. And it's hard for people to understand that, you save, so now it costs you more.
Well, and it's not
It's
the
a double-edged
electricity
sword.
it's getting it to you. It's the same idea, so. Well, thank, that was very, the chart is very helpful, so. Okay, good. The side by side comparison of the different years. You can kind of see the weather patterns too.
Well, we have, because we can't live in an emergency zone with surgeries. We have to be able to pay for ourselves normally, and then that's the extra one you just save.
Maybe trouble we did that.
Okay, Ellen Ellis?
Okay, similar to the master fee schedule, we'll be bringing forward the final engineering report for the landscape and lighting district for our 7 zones. That was also presented to council. No real changes, significant changes from the council has already seen. I don't know, Susie, is there anything you want to do as an overview?
Sure, I'll just add that, there's two zones that are scheduled for an increase. One is 2.8%, so it's like $7. And the other one is 13.5%, which sounds like a lot, but it ends up being $30 a year. They all 5 of the others are scheduled for either a 0 or a decrease. So I think we're on the right track.
And then Ivy Ranch is like so small, and so it's like, it's not the ones going up by 13,
And it-
or
No,
just one of the smaller ones.
Yeah,
It does,
yeah.
it's not being that much money.
I only had a huge leak at one point,
Yeah.
so we're kind of playing this catch-up thing with them, and
Yeah,
so.
and that will improve with capital improvement project of the meter, the
Exactly.
electronic meter, so.
Yeah, so very minimal changes.
Right.
Overall.
Take more time to approve them than it will to.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, budget amendment related to 7.1.23 COLA increase.
Okay, actually, I'm gonna ask, Shannon, I hope you're out there listening. If we can,
Did we bore her to death?
promote, Mike, if we can promote Shannon.
Well. Oh, good, you did,
Uh,
okay.
Oh, he jumped off.
Okay, so Shannon and Susie coordinated on this item, and we're gonna bring it forward again at the next council meeting on June 14th. Just a little bit of background on this. The council adopted in prior to the 21-22 budget, adopted a 2-year budget. At the time of adoption, the budget did not include any of the subsequently negotiated cost of living adjustments, which in the current fiscal year was 5%. And based on the most recent consumer price index published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the CPI came in at just slightly over 4%. I think Shannon was 4.1%.
Yeah, I believe it's 4.19, almost 4.2%, yes.
And so there was a ceiling of 4% in the MOUs with the labor groups. Again, that COLA was not included in the current fiscal year budget. So the impact of the COLA reflects the 5% COLA for 22-23, as well as the proposed COLA for 23-24. In addition to those two COLAs, this year there was a fairly significant increase in the healthcare premiums. The city is a member of REMIT, and REMIT provides the healthcare plan for employees and council. And the REMIT board just met, was it a week before last?
Yeah, May 24th.
And finalized the healthcare plans. The increase was slightly over 10%. And so the budget amendment that we're bringing forward reflects the COLAs and the increase in premiums. I don't know, Shannon, do you have anything you could, in your agenda report, that you can share with council or share with the subcommittee? I'm sorry.
Far as dollar, yeah, hold on one second. I'm just trying to get it all pulled up here. So the total amount is going to be about $744,000 for the COLA. This is the 5% for last year plus the 4% on top of that. Of that, almost 503,000 is general fund. Water is about 107,000, sewers about 88,000. And the rest is airport and L&Ls and other government, such as streets.
And what was the cost, the total that you mentioned, Shannon, was $740?
$744,236 to be
And-
exact.
What's the portion that attributable to the healthcare costs?
Rolled up into one, the way we do it in OpenGov, we make all the changes together. I could go back and look at the differences, but the way the agenda report's prepared right now, that's the COLA and the health insurance,
All wrapped up.
all
Okay.
wrapped up into one, yes.
744,000, of which about 500 is general fund, and the rest are special funds or enterprise funds.
That's correct.
We're gonna get that when it comes.
That's gonna come to council on for the 14th. Our plan, unless recommended otherwise, was just to put it on consent. There's no reason to have a public hearing list or new business unless you want to discuss it more detail.
No.
No, let's move on.
Okay.
Also the last.
Later.
You know, it's just it's based on CPI, it's just, you know, it's just the way it's gonna be, there's not really a lot of discussion or input that can really be had, so.
If that's your call, they can just go on consent.
But we might need to start looking at alternatives that we talked about before and things.
Yeah, we'll be kickstarting the labor negotiation process. Probably sometime later this year.
With what the county does. Okay, anything else? All right, move on to the standing up items. One, you already did that. Chief, you want to do number 2, the 10th officer and SRO?
Sure, I'll just kind of give you an update of where we're at. We did officially choose a local gal here, was born and raised here. She's gone through the system quite well. The only thing pending in her background now is for medical, which I don't foresee any problems. And she's with the lieutenant now in Santa Rosa getting fitted for uniforms. With a tentative start date of the academy of July 24th.
Did she do the JC program or did she do a local program for the academy?
It's gonna start July 24th.
Oh,
We're
okay,
sponsored
and
through
that's
that.
what, okay, that's
Yeah,
that's
we're
her
sponsored
thing, where
through
she was
that.
sponsored.
Correct.
But it's the JC program.
It'll be
Okay.
through the community college over at Windsor.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, at the Windsor campus,
Mhm.
yeah.
Windsor campus and
She didn't have that back in my JC days, I have to, like, I remember that, yeah.
well, they didn't have it at Windsor, but I think
No, they had it, and they had it, some of my classmates were in the academy program, so,
Gotcha.
yeah, and then I think we stopped seeing them after they moved to Windsor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so basically the candidate will don Cloverdale police uniform.
Great.
Will be essentially paying her as an employee.
Yeah, correct.
And you know, as approved by council. And once she completes the academy, then she can officially can
So
start her work.
so this time next year, she'll be getting really close to being on her own.
Yeah, so she will graduate tentatively December. Once she's sworn in, then she'll start the field training program, which in our organization is about 16 weeks with orientation phases and everything. So, and then ideally, that position, as you know, it's managed with the school resource officer, and we're looking somewhere next April, May, hopefully try to get in around there.
Mhm.
That's what we're looking at. So, yes,
Right.
Yep.
exactly.
Great job.
And then we'll be able to provide in theory, the school resource officer.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Ideally, try to put someone over there. That time.
So do we have to approve her hire? Or is it already done? And-
It's already done.
I just want to make sure there wasn't something that.
Yeah, no, it's already been done. We came back as this training position.
I-
Yeah.
She said hire first before.
I can be a her.
Well, you could be. Jose could be. We only give him say.
Shots fired.
Well, no, seriously, though.
Yeah, and-
Congratulations, it sounds like a great prospect.
I could probably add that once she completes the medical and we've confirmed everything, I plan to introduce her at a council meeting. And we'll just do a real quick. There's no real swearing in that needs to be done at that point, but once she graduates, we'll probably swear her in officially after graduation,
Yeah.
but then I'll kind of do maybe another modified one to the academy, so you guys can have that opportunity as well. So,
So you're saying we're gonna have 2 female officers.
and I'm thrilled about that. And
That's it.
Marlene, if you don't know her, Marlene is the manager at our local Starbucks here. She knows everybody, which was a huge bonus. But I like her. An extension of the top of Starbucks, no wonder they all know. her. She's a tremendously nice person. A bunch of us went out and introduced ourselves to her family and her brother and sisters, so that they were all comfortable and getting to know what environment she's getting into. She's also bilingual, which is fantastic. Yeah, and we needed her help because her folks do not speak, and she was very nice to have her there and she has to have all that happen. So it went over really well. She feels a part of being at home all day, so that's good. I think that'll be helpful.
And she is prepared to graduate, please let us know so we can attend.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that would be great. I haven't been to one of those in a while. Those are fun.
Yeah.
All right, Measure P, canvas report. Anything? I think we kind of went over the last meeting and it wasn't, like, nothing updated since then.
Yeah, and there's kind of been a slow decline in the amounts.
It's definitely something that we shouldn't be bringing back to council unless anything down there.
So is there any progress on, kind of, meeting with the companies on a quarterly basis or?
Yeah, that's on our to-do list, is to coordinate a meeting. I know there's strong interest, at least among certain cannabis operators, to be able to meet the staff and we just need to coordinate. and follow
Get that
up.
going. Yeah, that was really, a key point on a lot of, we had a lot of community input on that when the public was coming, is they wanted. And I think that the cannabis businesses too, I mean, that was a lot of the conversation, is they want to have a real partnership with the city. And, since the revenue is not what everybody was hoping for, we need to make sure that we have a really open and healthy dialogue with them. I think that they have access to some information that maybe we don't necessarily get directly from the state, about how we could enhance some of our revenue options by, taxing the transportation or the delivery services that are coming into town from outside of town, things like that. So they have access to a lot of information. So I'd like to see that get off the ground so that, we're not just taking bad news to the council about what is sad about the revenues, but I'd like to see some progress made on how we're gonna, team up with the business owners and try to solve some of those together. I'd like to see before we
Yeah.
take, and I think that May sucked for a long, I don't know if you've seen the sales tax revenue figures yet, but May was so rainy and cloudy and awful and nobody went anywhere. And I was thinking sales tax revenues were pretty down across the county, and tourism was really down across the county. It's usually the month that everybody kind of comes out and starts, doing local tourism, and everybody's just like, I'm not getting on the road, I just checked, I just got a weather alert that we might have a thunderstorm here in Cloverdale. That's like, what the heck? But the things like that I think are impacting as well. And so, I'd just like to see that get off the ground before we bring this to council.
So then with that, I know we did it at the council meeting. I don't think you want to have another subcommittee. You want to bring it to this subcommittee?
Yeah.
Let's maybe put them on the agenda for the next. Okay.
Or they meet with staff and then you report out here.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that it'd be beneficial just for flexibility's sake is just doing an ad hoc.
Okay.
And
I just don't want any more meetings on the plate for all of us and.
we can certainly dovetail
I
it.
think that some of the stuff that they need to discuss is so technical that I don't think they need us here muddying the waters much. So I'd kind of rather see staff meet with them about, the technical challenges and then bring that information to this subcommittee. It's just.
Maybe we can coordinate and develop an agenda and topics that they'd like to cover, and we could.
I'm gonna ask Erin, she's got agenda topics.
And then if they want to come to our, and if it's agendized, if you have your meeting and you would just have it as a standing item here. then you can give us a report out, and if Aaron or anybody, if you have business owners want to come and comment, then they certainly can. But we don't have to fill this meeting up with that cannabis meeting every quarter. I think that, I don't want to see that.
But I would like to see something
Yeah.
moving forward with that, just so we can
Yeah.
move forward with our work.
Yeah.
Did the water rate tracking worksheet? Donate that one. Veterans Hall generator, we were updated recently. I don't know if you want
Yeah, just in summary, I think the interest was in the type of generator that was going to be deployed or planned to be deployed at the Veterans Hall. The director of infrastructure for the county has indicated that the goal is to install a gas powered natural gas.
Hardwired.
Hardwired with a backup battery.
with
The backup battery.
Tesla batteries? He
Oh,
said,
excellent.
he said basically the generator's only 6,500, which is
Yeah.
not big enough to run a house.
Yeah,
But because of the battery packs, he thinks it can recharge the batteries fast enough to run the building off the batteries.
yeah.
And that just replenishes.
Really, what it comes down to, I mean, unless it's a resiliency hub, and if we want to look at that, I also emailed David about the grant possibility for resiliency hubs, unless we want to, you know, piggyback onto that project, you really only need to power the refrigerator. You know, you just need to make sure that you don't lose your refrigerator. It's just, you know, so it's probably sized for that, but if it were going to.
John said it'll run the air conditioners.
Still run air conditioners,
Yeah,
okay.
he said it will, so it's kind of a test thing, he said, because of the battery being new and things like that. He said it's our chance to test the water to
That's
see how it does.
perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect, because we have possibility where, you know, if the other, you know, we could experience another heat storm where we're really going to need to have these facilities that are gonna have air conditioning, like the library, Vets Hall, senior center. So that we can have cooling centers, if we have another heat storm like we have, that means that we've got to be able to run on battery. And we've got to have enough juice to.
It's crazy, it's like the 6,500 generator, like I said, I have them on the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And they're so small
Yeah.
and efficient.
Yeah.
To see if this really works, this is something that we will be nailing all these spots probably.
But you do want it to be hardwired into the natural gas, because in an
Yes.
emergency, the fire department can come and or the police department, no offense, can come and confiscate it, and that's something that other facilities learn the hard way during. For outages, it's like, you want to make sure your generator system and your everything is hardwired into the building. So, but if maybe we want to do a subsequent project with that resiliency grant so that we can have either more battery or, you know, solar panels on the roof or something like that, where we can augment this system so that it's, you know, more dependable.
Tesla Powerwall just went way down. The batteries.
Oh, batteries
buy
keep going
directly
down.
from Tesla now, so.
Yeah, they keep going down.
$1,500. It was 10 because it was a
Yeah.
middleman. Yeah.
No, but it's Moore's law. It's every year they're gonna go down, and the technology is getting better. It's just crazy.
Well, that's the part is we have to almost wait for the technology to get better because, and that's what I think Johannes is banking off of.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
One battery will run your house for about 4 hours if you run nothing. kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's,
You
you know,
plug your refrigerator in.
so it's not as great as it sounds and
Yeah.
it takes up the entire wall of your garage basically. So, and you can't park anything near it or put anything near it. So I'm loving the technology getting better. And like I said, it's cheap. I skipped over your police logs.
There's not much of an update there, only to say that we're in the process of upgrading our website. All of that website will include our police logs on a
It's
weekly.
just a running log automatic.
Yeah, so I've looked into a couple of options. We're probably gonna have to manually put those in because the only other option, which I know Katati is doing, is it requires a purchase of another system called LexisNexis.
Of course. Oh, we don't have like.
We're gonna get into a contractual obligation on that, so I have to determine, is it easier for us just to load these by a weekly basis? I don't know that we have such a huge volume of calls that it's, you know.
Can you copy and paste it from somewhere?
Ultimately,
Yeah.
that's what we're gonna start.
Yeah.
We're gonna take our catalogs from those
Yeah.
incidents, and then we're just gonna PDF them
Right.
and have Linda enter them in. I think that's gonna satisfy anybody's requests.
Mhm.
And I think that'll make people happy that they
Just
can
make
hit
sure
that
the
link.
PDFs are searchable. That's the only thing, just make sure that they're searchable, and that, because people are gonna wanna be able to do a search. Lots, yeah.
That's fine. I mean, there's no real requirement, as you know, we just have to make them available, and they are available in the PD. We're just trying to make it convenient for those folks who have called and asked that we have
Oh, God, I used to
Cheese
choose
Lake
those
Festival.
in the Revelation Drive. That's like the best, that was the best.
So that's where we're at, and we're hoping that that update happens relatively soon. There's quite a bit to that.
Do we need the flavored tobacco ban on anyone?
Well, I think, we received a presentation by County Department of Health. There were some options available. Chief and I discussed, and we'll coordinate with County Department of Health. I think there's an interest in having their staff do the enforcement.
Yeah.
Since it's kind of in their wheelhouse. It's not something we have a lot of extra officer time to take care of. So what it was going to require is us to bring forward an update or amendment to the municipal code.
Well, we don't need to hear anymore now. We can go to
Yeah.
council when you're ready, correct?
Right.
So we can remove that one.
That's good. That's great.
And if there's anything else, Melanie, you see or anybody, please, I love simplifying. Senior staff compensation compaction study.
Yeah, so this was something that was brought up in closed session and it was referred to the subcommittee, but I think probably should be in closed session. It's really about labor negotiations with your senior staff team. So
You want to go ahead and schedule that for next month?
Yeah.
there's some work, I'll coordinate with Shannon because there's some work that we need to do to bring forward that analysis for council's consideration.
So you'll let us know when you're ready then?
Yeah.
We can probably remove 9 then. We
Yeah.
kind of covered that, right? Does that get consumed by the earlier item?
I think so, unless you want to see a
No.
draft before it goes to council.
No.
Okay.
Really quick for clarification, are we saying that number 9 can be removed from future?
Yes, and 9.
Okay.
And then 8, we're gonna just,
You go to closed session.
we can go to closed session, so that can.
Yeah.
You need it. No, we're gonna take up number 2 if you guys are all right now that we have.
Oh, yeah,
different
let's
thoughts
take that
going
off.
forward, and we already know.
And actually, do you want to take lease logs off? Or just?
I think we got that covered.
I think
All
we
right, let's get these logs off. So 2, 3, 7, 8, 9,
And 6, we don't really need 6, do we?
6, we could do away with 6. Yeah, that's not a done deal.
Yeah. I do want to put it on our list of, well, it's kind of on our list of buildings that we might want to look at for additional resilience. Yeah, if we talk about that at planning and sustainability, yeah, that can be part of our inventory of buildings, potential buildings, for grant application.
And I responded to your email with a list of facilities.
And I read it.
Oh, okay. You're good. Just real quick on that, it is,
I've got it.
I think there is a need or desire to ensure we have resiliency facilities established. We've had conversations with the library, conversations with the senior center, and we've even had conversations with the veterans. So it's, I think in terms of grants and looking at that, it's really about honing in on a program with those entities and deciding, what each of those entities' roles are.
Right.
And then what improvements to the facilities that we want to make or desire to have happen to support resiliency. Obviously,
and this-
the county is doing a lot with the generator there.
But this is the difficulty of not having a grant writer either on staff or contracted or part-time, because we don't have an overview. There's also, just for example, there's the Bay Run program for libraries for resiliency locations and stuff. It is completely different from the I don't know, I've even forgotten what it's called, just that from that, the one that I sent you earlier today. And so there's an opportunity for overlap, but there's also a possibility of duplication. And so there isn't any place where, that I know where we really, manage that. Or isn't any, you guys, your brains are getting a little full probably at this point. And
Well,
that's
we budgeted for this, so we
Yeah.
could bring somebody in to do.
to just sort of manage, what we're looking at, because, and then I think, bring the grant applications in line with the SIP again, even though the ones that are on the top of your brain and the ones that aren't. So, but that's the challenge is like, well, we're getting all this information from all of these different places about similar grants, and it's like, there's no central place where we can go and look, and it's just like, who's doing what and with which grants, and then who could we potentially partner with. It's like, I don't want to continually send emails like, oh, are we applying for this? Are we applying for this? Because I don't think that's the best use of your time necessarily. But there's no reference point that I can go and look at and be like, this is where we are in the process.
Yeah, I think what we,
This is who's working on what. Because that grant is like, that could be Los Angeles Sana, that could be NC 707, that could be the senior center, or it could be a group of us partnering on something completely different to, or us partnering with vets to augment the system that the county is already putting there. So that's kind of the challenge of managing all of, it's just managing the information of who's doing what, who's applying for what.
what I'm gonna recommend, is on the next agenda, we put an update on our grants list.
There we go.
We actually, this is something we've been working on, primarily, we've been coordinating with Vanessa's team at West Yost, because they have dedicated grant writers, and as of recently, the projects that we've been really pursuing are the infrastructure projects around roads and looking at wastewater projects. But we've been funneling all the other all the emails we get to them, and they've got a really nice master list of grants, and so we've been just trying to be. There's been so much funding out there. We've been trying to be strategic and also sensitive to the time that we've been putting into these. We just for instance, last week we put in a pretty large grant application for the Healdsburg intersection improvements, which required a fair amount of time and energy, but West Coast did a great job of coordinating. So that's where we've basically been covering part of their work with the grant, the budget money that we put aside for grant applications.
Also the sidewalk on First Street,
Mhm.
we got that one too,
So are we using that budget for West Yost or? Are we
Yes.
still-
Yeah.
Because we
almost valid.
we
Okay,
use
yeah, that's good to know.
and
They touching you kids.
the big application that we prepared for the wastewater feasibility study, that was a really extensive grant application. We've done multiple grant applications now with their.
Well, you'll be able to see all the ones that we talked to her about and our little analysis and which ones seem plausible and what we went for. So we can put that out.
So when it kind of comes time for budget, should we, you might want to have it here.
Yeah.
is How much money we allotted, and how much you need to, and how much we got from it, what was the return on investment?
Right.
Yeah.
And we will be bringing forward at the second meeting, I think it's gonna be the second meeting in June. The renewal of the contract with West Yost, which they've done quite a bit of work on the grant writing for us, so.
It sounds like what you're saying is that a lot of the stuff it may not sound like it falls in West Yost's wheelhouse, but it actually does. You're using them for, because I think of them as like the water experts, but you're using them for.
Yeah, they have a team of grant writing specialists.
Yeah,
So we've,
So maybe more, more kinds of grants fall under that category, or under their capability than I initially assumed.
yeah, well, our focus has been on
Infrastructure.
so.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, whether it's been roads, water, wastewater,
That's their
that
thing.
their expertise, because part of what's a typical critical component of the grant application is the the cost estimate work. And it's been really valuable to have Vanessa's feedback and their team's input on that piece of it in particular. But there is a whole array of grants out there, some of which may not be perfectly in their wheelhouse, though they're very good at how they target the application process and get us to coordinate the information that's needed to fill in those pieces. And it's been working pretty good, but not to say we couldn't have additional resources to kind of go after some of these funding sources. There's a lot out there.
Hold on, I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe West Yost is $400 an hour and a grant writer is 125. So
Right.
somebody else. I don't know. That's why I'm listening to best use of time.
Probably pretty close, yeah. So the ones that we, actually, I think 150 was the one that I sent you.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
have to
yeah,
see what Hawkeye builds us for.
right, I don't know what I mean, I kind of have an idea, I know that Vanessa's rate is considerably higher, but I don't know what their grant rating rate is, and it's very, you know, they're adamant, they're variable, yeah, on their, they have their fee schedule, and it's pretty variable.
Pretty good though.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the ROI might show that.
But I mean, yeah, but yeah.
Got the WR, CDBG.
Those are your big ticket items.
SBTA,
SBA.
yeah. If we get the USBR grant, that'll be huge, because that's over $1 million.
But it would be nice to see at the kind of the end of the year, or the end of 2 years, it's like, well, this is how much we
Yeah.
contracted with them, and this is what we got out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
That would
that's
be
good. It's a good point.
an ROI.
So I think we only put in like 75 into the budget, so I mean.
And we're pretty.
And it was just. Yeah, so I'd love to see, you know, hey.
75 and we get 10 million and.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we get $1 million out of it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's bring it on.
So the DWR grant alone is gonna be 2 million. So
Yeah.
that was significant.
That's your big ticket.
And then the
items,
CDBG was, with 700. Oh, yeah, 400 was half the cost.
Yeah, I say, well, I.
Yeah,
like,
SDK.
look into that.
Yeah, it was 1.2 million. So.
so pretty good.
Yeah.
But they've developed a tracker for us. They have, so when we get these, we get a lot of solicitations too. So we put it on the list and then we look at it and.
I'm sure she's gonna tell us one day, I don't know how to do this one, if it's for art or something, it's gonna be completely
Right.
different, but. So far, they've been pretty good about doing
Great. Love it.
Oh, we'll put it on the
Yeah.
future agenda.
Yeah, that'd be great.
But in addition to, it's not just what we're paying them, it's like you guys are also, yeah, you're managing all my emails, or if we applied for this, or if we applied for this, but you're also managing a relationship with them, and so your hours are part of the investment of, you know, and the ROI analysis.
So, Susie looked it up, Hawkeye's $215 an hour.
Yeah, and they charge by the quarter hour, so I mean.
Yeah,
I think that we can, yeah.
Not cheap though.
Not
cheap.
cheap.
well, neither are.
What is?
Thank you for answering that. So if that can be a standing item here, that would be
That's
great,
either,
you know, I mean, I know we took off plenty, so. We can add one.
Even just an update or a presentation on it, show us where it's at. So we know what to think about the next budget sizing.
And we're starting to see, I haven't fully digested it yet, but we're starting to see some clawbacks already, you know, the latest budget bill, there was clawbacks of federal funds, so.
Oh, Rare got hit hard and they had to like do a weekend. Yeah, it was ugly.
Yep. Let's go buy some trash cans.
Yeah.
Any other future agenda items that you can think of? Anyone?
Not right.
Great. Time is here. 58. All right, well, we need to adjourn right at 58.
That was a lot.
That was a lot to get through.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, guys.
Put Shannon on the spot, she didn't even know she didn't have.
I know.
Hey,